noticed that there's been a lot of talk about the multiverse within superhero movies recently? You have shows like Loki creating a live-action multiverse that fans have wanted since even before the MCU. You have Into the Spider-Verse revolutionizing superhero movies with this multiverse concept being pushed to new heights. And you even have DC coming in with their own Flashpoint movie that revolves completely around time travel and alternate realities. But all of this talk about the multiverse has got me thinking about what other crazy and wacky possibilities we could see lifted from the comics and put onto the big screen. From monsters and furries to truly evil and apocalyptic, the multiverse truly has an endless amount of possibilities. Hey guys, my name is DJ, and comic books have become a breeding ground for crazy universes and wacky alternate realities. We've seen in shows like What If how the possibilities are truly endless throughout the multiverse. Just from that show alone, we've seen zombie Avengers take over the world, Doctor Strange pushing himself beyond his limits to become an all-powerful being, and even the demise of civilization with Ultron becoming a chaotic multiversal destroyer. But that is merely the tip of the iceberg for these kinds of stories. In the comics from both Marvel and DC, the multiverse has been used to showcase some incredible alternate realities. So why don't we just jump in with the universe that basically inspired this entire topic with Marvel's Earth 8311, aka the Furryverse. Earth 8311 is an odd universe to say the least, as all of the characters are anthropomorphic, cartoon-talking animals. As you can probably guess, this is the universe that the now famous Spider-Ham lives in, as he takes on Earth's most powerful animals. But this universe actually gets a whole lot weirder and a whole lot cuter than just Spider-Ham. Sure, most people are probably aware of Spider-Ham through the Into the Spider-Verse movie, but there are still plenty of Marvel characters represented in this universe. There are alternate versions of entire super being groups like the Avengers and the Sinister Six. Although, in this universe, they're named the Ska Avengers and the Swinister Swix, which I think we can all agree is pretty fucking adorable. Personally, my favorite alternates in this universe are the feline Captain Americat, the blind buck of Daredevil, the lightning-charged Electropotamus, Perry the Platypus's favorite intergalactic being in Galactopus, and my personal favorite out of these animal Avengers, the Pigeon. But these aren't the only animal superheroes out there in the multiverse, as DC has their own version of a Furryverse in Earth 26. In DC's Furryverse, there are characters like Captain Carrot, the mouse-like Little Cheese, the elastic elongator, and the free American Eagle, among others. And speaking of Marvel and DC universes with similar characteristics, why don't we turn our attention to our next universe? From DC Comics, we have Earth 8, aka DC's Marvel Universe. In the long rivalry between DC and Marvel, there have been plenty of jabs thrown from both sides. But DC might have Marvel beat here with their parody universe over on Earth 8. A universe designed to be DC's own version of Marvel, Earth 8 is essentially just Marvel's Earth 616 with different characters and name changes. Instead of having Earth's mightiest heroes in the Avengers, this universe has the rampaging Retaliators. Essentially, this universe is basically what happens when a Marvel fanboy starts writing for DC. But I have to admit, it is kind of interesting to see how DC views the main Marvel universe through the lens of Earth 8. And of course, this universe even has its own Infinity Stones and Doctor Doom. In this universe though, the Infinity Stones are called the Omni Gauntlets, with Doctor Doom being parodied by Mad Lord Havoc. But he is not the only major bad guy that this universe has had to deal with. Since DC are the ones creating this universe, they have the ability to kind of play around with their own characters. So we actually see a pretty interesting representation of what could happen if some of the DC comic characters interacted with some of Marvel's characters parodied through this universe. Which is exactly the kind of thing we saw when Earth 8 was visited by Darkseid. But sadly, this only ended in disaster as Darkseid decided to take on the planet, leaving them devastated and traumatized. So traumatized, in fact, that when another version of the Justice League started to interact with their universe, the heroes over on Earth 8 immediately told them to leave. Their interaction with the multiverse led to a worldwide disaster that they will probably never recover from. So even in their own fiction, DC has left their Marvel universe scarred. But moving on from that, we've got our next universe. From Marvel, we have Earth 4162, aka the Living Earth. Now this universe is actually pretty normal. They have the normal Avengers, they have the Fantastic Four, they have all of the characteristics of a regular Marvel universe. So you may be asking, why exactly did I put this universe in here? Well, you see, this universe has one tiny little bite-sized kink to it. The Earth of this universe is a living being with eyes and a brain. That's right, quite like Ego the Living Planet, Earth has a brain and a pair of eyes to watch over the universe with. In this universe, Ego decided to send a seed of awareness into Earth, and this seed allowed him to transform the planet into a sentient being that Ego now had complete control over. So in this universe, Earth is a living being being completely controlled by Ego. And even though he loses this ability through the story of this universe, I still think the idea of Earth being a sentient being is actually rather interesting. Also, look at that thing! It's an Earth with eyes and a brain! It's so weird and awesome! I mean, just imagine if Earth was a sentient being, always watching and feeling what we're doing. Oh, it's so weird, but so cool as a concept. But anyways, let's move on from that horrifying sight with this DC universe as we have Earth 3, aka the full-on evil Earth. Now, if you're watching this video, then you're probably most likely familiar with the Injustice storyline. The story in which Superman decides to, essentially, become the global leader and kill any enemy that stands in his way. In that story, you could say that he becomes an evil tyrant over the Justice League and Earth as a whole. However, on Earth 3, this kind of behavior is completely normal. Instead of people turning evil like in Injustice or just reluctantly joining Superman out of fear, Earth 3's world is basically a world where everyone is just evil by default. Rather than a world that values right and wrong decisions, Earth 8's people value strength and power above all. The more powerful and ruthless you are, the higher you are on the food chain, leaving weak people helpless and defenseless on this planet. And to top it off, this world has their own version of the Justice League in the sadistic and unstoppable crime Syndicate. These evil Justice League counterparts have essentially devastated their own planets in order to gain more power. But in that world, it's all normal. Hell, even the laws and police are not really there to help. Even their corrupt government is designed to help the powerful become even more powerful, with everyone else slowly being pushed to the side. But hey, I guess that means their world is not too much different than our own. But to sidestep that whole bag of worms, we'll move on to Marvel's Earth 58163, aka the House of M. The war between mutants and human beings has been raging on for as long as mutants have existed. Even though the X-Men have been here to protect and care for the human beings of Earth, there is still a large portion of the population who are afraid of these mutants. But on this Earth, that problem is non-existent. In this universe, Earth's war between mutants and humans has concluded, with both sides now living together in harmony. No longer do mutants hide who they are, our superheroes and mutants are revered and even celebrated by society. But it wasn't always like this. Quite like the TV show Wanda Vision, this entire universe was created after Scarlet Witch essentially had a mental breakdown. After being targeted by the world's heroes, she decided to make a massive change to the world. She saw all the corruption and hatred in the Marvel Universe and decided to recreate the world so that the pain was gone. Wanda decided that the best way to create a peaceful world was to give everyone exactly what they wanted. And since this world was designed to bring everyone their deepest desires, a lot of other interesting changes have been made. Events like Uncle Ben's death and Captain America turning into a popsicle for 80 years just never happened. But I won't spoil everything in this universe because the House of M story is actually a pretty captivating one. It's the kind of story that's heartbreaking, bittersweet, and really fun to read, so I highly suggest that you go take time out of your day to read it. But for our last universe of the day, we have DC's Earth 47, aka the Hippie Universe. To close out this conversation of fun alternate realities, I wanted to take a look at one of the sillier universes that I could find. And after learning about the existence of this universe, I have to say that it might be my new favorite universe in DC. On Earth 47, the world essentially revolves around three things: peace, love, and drugs. Lots and lots of drugs. In Earth 47, the hippie movement from the 1960s continues to live on. Flowers, peace, and love are what make up this world that I only dream was our own. But this is still DC Comics, which means some people on this world, for whatever reason, don't want to live in this paradise that I just wish I could be a part of. Which brings us to their version of the Justice League, the Love Syndicate, a team that stands for truth, justice, and psychedelics. Comprising of characters like Sunshine Superman, Speed Freak, and Magic Lantern, this league of groovy superheroes are out to protect anything that stops them from having a good time. But with all this peace and prosperity, there is still a government to kinda keep everything in order, which is where we meet Prez Rickart, the president of this world. He is an immortal teenager forever leading this hippie world, but he is also there to support the Love Syndicate as he is the leader and financer of this organization. So, even in the core of this world, the 1960s lives on, and I love it. I honestly wish there were more stories in this universe, but from what I could tell, we've only really seen this universe through multiversal events. However, with that universe, I think it's time to end our conversation about alternate realities. But don't worry, there are still an infinite amount of possibilities and a ton of universes that I didn't even get to cover from both Marvel and DC. Whether it's a universe where everyone's a zombie, a werewolf, a fish, or even Legos, there are an infinite amount of possibilities out there and so many fun and exciting realities in our vast multiverse. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Tell me down below, what are some of your favorite alternate realities and which ones did you particularly like that I talked about today? Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. But until next time, have a good day. Bye-bye.